our friend Brandi Shigley.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, good. Oh my gosh, this is such a freaking honor to be here. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm gonna hand this to you, and you're gonna do like the soundtrack while I'm doing my presentation, okay? It's C, D, and E. Clicker. All right, guys, it is such an honor to get to speak about Kismet. Kismet is such a magical word. Let's actually discover what Kismet could be. Definitions of Kismet derives from the Arabic kisma, meaning portion or lot. I love that, like our portion or our lot in life. Fate or destiny, divinely ordained, a predetermined or unavoidable destiny. I like to call Kismet God winks. So at the beginning of my series of Kismet events starts with this beautiful woman, Vicky. Now, when Vicky was 19 years old, she had bad endometriosis and she had to have a hysterectomy. And that surgery actually led to the most beautiful worlds colliding in all of eternity. Let's see, this is about 1973. A boy, this little baby boy, was found in a shoebox at the end of the Vietnamese War on the hospital steps as a dying baby. The American nurses took care of him and brought him back to this beautiful baby that he is, and boom, he later came to America and was adopted by Maynard and Vicky Shigley, and my dad right there. That's my dad right there. So this story of just like, oh my gosh, a baby was found dying in a box and was brought back to health. Like, it's just one of those things that just shows like through tragedy comes beauty. And that's really what I feel like Kismet is about. So they captured his life in the Denver Post. This was on the cover of the Denver Post, my mom and my dad adopting my brother. And then 1975 rolls around, and Erlinda Ignacio and Manuel Gonzalez give birth to a baby girl, and they left the hospital. They abandoned their little baby. In fact, the little baby didn't really even have a name, and on the birth certificate was just baby girl. Baby girl was put into an orphanage for 8 months, and after 8 months was then transferred into a foster home and taken care of by this lovely lady, Marie Daner. So Marie was such an integral part in my life. Like, even though it was just for 8 months, she loved me. She cared for me. She gave me those, she was just that person to receive me being a baby. She was there for my first word, which was light. She was there to change my diapers and feed me and get to know my personality. And that's one thing, like, even though I was abandoned at birth and then into an orphanage and then fostered, I was loved. And even in that brief moment of time, that changed the total course of my life. So these are some of the letters that she wrote to my parents, and she is an active child, chatters all the time. Are you sure? It would be so interesting to know what's going on in that little mind of hers. But just even having somebody who was there to have those memories with me as a baby, but pre-adoption, was just absolutely such a gift. My adoption day, 1976. For the longest time, my brother, there he is, Train Long Win, who became Wayne Allen Shigley, thought that babies actually came from the airport. So when our next door neighbor was pregnant and was about to go have her baby, my brother's like, "Are you going to the airport?" So in fact, yes, they did go to the airport, and this is Stapleton International Airport, where baby girl Gonzalez, who soon became Brandi Sue Shigley, arrived. This is my brand new family. This is me and my brother. My brother's like, what do I do with this thing? This is my new sister. And I love this picture. This is me with my mom and my brother, first day in my new family. All right, so I want to flash forward to college. In college, I was a total well, I don't want to say I was a failure, but I was failing out of school big time. I had a 1.7 accumulative GPA. I spent all of my college time going to the skate park, going to the snowboarding park. I would rearrange my schedule just to go out and snowboard. And it was my third year of college where I got a letter that was like, you are about to get kicked out of college. And I was like, uh-oh, I better get my act together. And it was in that time where I had that 1.7A, I had like 3 Fs. I had one professor completely changed my life with one sentence he said. It was a speech class. And I said, I don't know what to speak about. And he's like, Brandi, I just want you to speak about what you're passionate about. And I'm like what I love? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, the Beastie Boys. I totally love the Beastie Boys. So I got to do my very first public speaking engagement about the Beastie Boys. And what I learned within that sentence of, I just want you to be passionate, was that I realized I could take passion and I could put it into every single thing that I did. School immediately, almost literally immediately, went from I'm not one of those students that I can read a book and then I take a test and then that is not me at all. But I started to realize that as soon as I put my heart into every single thing I do and I learn the way that I want to learn, that everything could change. So I started using my heart in school. Who would have thought of that? I started transforming the way that I looked at school and turned it into something fun. Like, that's one thing I love is, if it's not fun, I don't really want to do it. So I began to make school really fun, and it was just in that one little, just be passionate. Just be passionate. So I went from a 1.7, I graduated with honors with a 3.9 in speech communications. I got to wear the special tassels, and I just, that's one thing, you and I, all of the things that we go through, the darkness that we go through, what can we learn from it where we can give one person that little glimmer of hope that could completely change the whole direction of their life? And for me, it was that teacher who just said, I just want you to speak about what you're passionate about. Also, just a really quick shout out to the Beastie Boys. In 2008, I had the opportunity to go and play softball with Ad Rock. I was his designated runner, so I got to do, he had a bad back, and he's like, who could be my designated runner? I'm like, me! Oh my gosh! So I actually scored 2 runs for the ADROCK, and that was kind of a dream come true. And just so interesting how back in 1996, when I was in school and I was so passionate about the Beastie Boys, that was just like one little seed that grew into playing softball with the Beastie Boys. All right, some other random kismet occurrences. Again, I didn't tell you this part. So in my education, when I was super duper into snowboarding, I got into a pretty bad accident. I didn't break anything, but what I did break was my ego. I lost my balls, okay? I was up at St. Mary's Glacier. It was a 25-foot gap. I just did this huge, gigantic method over the gap. Woo! And I landed over the gap in the flat. And I'm like, oh, I can do so much better than that. So I get back up, I kind of get cocky. I do it again, but this time I speed check, and I went, wha-bam! Right into the jump, right into the ramp. And my whole body just went, whoop-pew. It's called a garage sale when you just lose all of your goggles, your hat, everything that goes flying off. And at that point, I feel like there's times in life where when you fall, whether it's literally or figuratively, in my case it was literally, you either get back up or you're done. So I chose not to get back up because I was too scared. So then in that time, I was just like, I can't do that anymore. And I ended up having a sewing machine as a gift, and I started cranking out handbags. And it was in that time when I was cranking out handbags, teaching myself how do I make a handbag, that I ended up growing a little business called Brandi Shigley Designs. And that ended up just taking off. Let's see here. That ended up taking off. I was like the top up-and-comer of the year. I was the this and the that. And really what I was just a girl who taught herself how to make handbags, was obsessed with making handbags, and did something with it. Like, I didn't have an education in fashion. I didn't have thousands of dollars to start this business, but just like my professor said, I had that passion in me. So, snowboarding, crashing, turns into starting a handbag business. And again, starting this handbag business was something that I was just doing out of that love. And the internet at the time was so new. It was 1999 when I started this business. I just built my website on Microsoft Word. I just went onto the Alta Vista network, did the dial-up DSLR, or DSL. Okay. So that business, because the internet was so new, this was before Etsy, this was before Google, it ended up taking off, and I was selling my handbags in Paris, London, New York, LA, San Francisco, and getting all of this media attention, and it always felt like, well, but I'm just a girl making bags. Like, I never really understood what the big draw was, but what I think that it was that just that these people saw that I was a girl who was living life passionately. Let's go ahead and fast forward to 12 years ago. I meet this guy. So I am a musician. I wouldn't even call myself a musician, but I like to play and I know the basic chords, but really what I love to do is express myself through song. So fortunately, I have an awesome group of friends that are actually real musicians and they know what they're doing and they back my band. And I was playing a show at the Westward Music Showcase, and this guy came up to me. His name is Sammy T. Some of you guys may know him, Sammy Taggett. And he's a musician, and he was bartending, and he's like, you're Filipino, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, so are you. And we discovered that we were both Filipinos. We were both adopted from the Philippines. And we're like, what if we start just playing shows and raising money for an orphanage in the Philippines? How fun would that be? So we started combining our talents and just having fun doing art shows and music shows together. And pretty soon, like 5 years later, after doing all of these art shows and music shows, we have the opportunity to go back to the Philippines. And in that time, does anybody remember when I was going back to the Philippines? We were having a big Indiegogo campaign, and what our goal was to collect money so we could take clean water filters back to the Philippines. And we raised our goal, and it was super awesome. And Sammy and I are like, you know what? Like, let's try and find our roots. Like, we're both adopted, so let's see what we can find out. So I started putting together a map. Sammy was born there, I was born here, here's this, this is our adoption. Like, just piecing it together. In that time of piecing it together, I wanted to know, where is this Marie Daner lady? What is she doing? I have so much to thank her about. And so I started doing research, and I had connected with her her daughter, who was my crib sister. Like, when I was in the Philippines being fostered by Marie, she was in the crib with me. We ended up reconnecting after years and years and years. And actually, growing up, let's see here. Growing up, the family, Marie, this is Marie, me, my brother, and then my foster sisters and me. They would come and visit us throughout our childhood. So this is us when we were kiddos. I love this one. We're in our little gymnastic suits, like, hey. So they would come and visit us, but I had not seen them since then. So it was like a good, 35, 40 years since I had even connected with them. And through our research, going back to the Philippines, Xantha and I ended up reconnecting. And in that time, having these conversations, there was a brief week where we thought we were actually biological sisters. And we're like, oh my gosh, like, we sent these pictures to each other at the exact same second, and we're like, are you my sister? But it turns out we're not sisters. But anyway, in that we were crib sisters and foster sisters. In that, being able to reconnect and find, like, just getting a little bit closer to my roots. Let's see here. So I had written about reconnecting with Xantha, and I had just written about, like, how meaningful that was and about our adventure. And I've always been what's called a blogger. Like in 1999, I started my online journal. I think that life is about sharing. I think it's about sharing the ugly, the good, the funny, the heartbreaking. Like, I love to share. I think it's just in my genetics to share. So I was just writing a little journal about her, and this is in 2015. Right before we go to the Philippines, guess what? Sammy and I discovered that we are from the same freaking orphanage. There are 2 million orphans in the Philippines, and we find ourselves 40 years later in the same city of Denver from the same orphanage. I think that's a little something called ding, 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 kismet. So here Sammy and I are, we're like, oh my gosh, we're from the same orphanage. The random orphanage that we had raised all that money for over the course of 5 years was our freaking orphanage. Dun, 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 kismet, kismet. So that was just absolutely like one of those, like, you can't even piece that together. Like, that is literally what kismet is. And it's funny how, like, these kismet things, sometimes you don't even realize they're kismet until years and years and years and years later. I mean, we discovered this 5 years after we had started raising money for this orphanage. So this is us at our orphanage performing songs. And that was just absolutely incredible to be where we were. By the way, like, at this orphanage, there was one woman taking care of 25 babies. And in those cribs that the babies are currently in are the cribs that I'm sure we were in. Like, they were very, very, very old. But all of these kids had smiles and were so full of joy. And this is, by the way, like, has anyone been to Manila before? Well, awesome. So Manila is a very condensed city with, you're either rich or you're very, very poor. And this I'm going to take this earring out because I feel like it's going ding, ding, ding. This orphanage was right in the middle of the city where all around it was just poverty, like kids drinking out of the ditches and just very, very, very heartbreaking. So along this adventure, remember, one of the parts of the adventure was that we were going to distribute clean water filters to areas that have no clean water. And this was quite the adventure. These 2 guys are soldiers. We were soldier guarded, or we were guarded by soldiers with all of these military escorted. That's what I'm trying to say. We were military escorted to the craziest, wildest jungles in the Philippines to get clean water filters to these people. Here's another little thing that's kind of kismet. When we were raising our money, we had raised enough money for like 40 water filters, in which we were going to hand take them out to the villages just on our own. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're just gonna get these out there. Boom, kismet. Somebody that we connected with along the way was like, come with us. And it was actually an organization called Samaritan's Purse. We got to go with Samaritan's Purse, and our 40 water filters went over to 200 water filters, 2 gigantic, what do you call those things that are like a big thing that holds a whole bunch of water? Cistern. Yeah, it was a rain cistern. We got to build 3 big rain cisterns in all of these remote villages, and it was like our water just multiplied. And it was just, boom, being at the right time, at the right place, with the right conversation. Just happens to be someone who works with Samaritan's Purse right next to us, and like this happened. So this picture right here makes me so happy. I want to just look at it from right there. We were riding in the back of the truck, and we had just loved on all of these people in this village, and they were just running behind us with so much joy and love in their hearts that it was just like, this is the epitome of just joy. And one of the things that I saw in my adventures in the Philippines was like, they don't have a lot. They don't even have clean water, but they have 2 things. 1, a karaoke machine. I think that's where I like to get my karaoke on. And 2, love. Like, that's one of the things that I've seen in my travels, is just like how much love and joy is in having nothing. And sometimes it's like we have so much stuff to distract us and take our minds off things, and we forget about like that joy really just comes from the heart, and you really don't need anything to have that joy exuding out of you. And this is just that expression of joy in this awesome little village. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fast forward to 6 months later. Remember that journal entry that I had written in my blog? Well, this woman right here Googles to find out who this Marie Daner is. Right here, she, to make a long story short, finds her biological sister, my foster sister. So through one little journal entry that I had written, and Google, thank you Google, these two sisters were reunited, and Xantha got to learn all about her whole entire biological family. She got to learn all about like meeting her sister. Look at them, they're like sisters. So here they are 40-something years later reconnecting. Kismet! Like it's one of those things that like so many tiny little details, so many words that just can be shared can turn into something so much more massive. That's kind of cool. So these are just some more random Kismet occurrences. This fellow right here, Woody, is actually right there, sitting in my family zone. I met Woody when we were at my mom and I were at a sarcoma conference. Woody was the speaker, and he was like, so yeah, I'm from Colorado. My mom were like, yeah! And then he's like, yeah, I'm from a little town called Aurora. And we're like, yeah! Where'd you go to high school, Woody? And he's like, Smoky Hill. And I'm like, yeah! So anyway, to make another long story short, here we are in freaking Atlanta at this conference. Woody's the speaker. Turns out we go to the same high school, and then months later we would come together to collaborate on artistic visions, raising money for sarcoma. So that was just really special, and it's super, super awesome to see you, Woody. You're amazing. This guy, Andrew cuts my hair. One day I go to get my hair cut. He's like, hey, there's this really cool space that's right upstairs that you should check out. Make a long story short, we now live in an 1890s loft because I got my haircut that day with Andrew. Oh, and then one day I'm just walking down the street on a first Friday. I run into a guy who's sitting right there. And our worlds just collide, and boom, there's the love of my life. His name is Patrick, and he's sitting right there. Boom! Kismet! So here's some of the things that I ponder. Where are you, Kismet? Like sometimes do you feel like there's people in your life, or maybe it's even you, where you're like, nothing good ever happens to me. There's no magic for me. Well, how do you find that magic? Where are you, Kismet? On a walk where you turn left instead of right. Like, how fun is it to just go a different way and get out of your comfort zone? One of the things that I think we are so busy with is we always have our earbuds in. We're always on our phones. We're like in the middle of a beautiful flower bed at Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, like, okay, what's my email? And we're missing everything around us. One of the things that, like, I love music, I love listening to music, I love podcasts, I listen. But one of the things that I've really been doing is just taking out my earbuds and just listening to the world around me and seeing and hearing and experiencing. Like, we live and work in a kind of crazy part of downtown across from the rescue mission, so there's a lot of homeless, houseless community there, and some of the most beautiful conversations have come from just walking by someone, not having my earbuds in, hearing what they're saying, hearing what they're talking about, and stopping and listening and talking. And we miss that when we have our earbuds in. We miss that when we're always on our phone. We miss that when we're so consumed with all of these worldly things that we don't leave an opportunity to actually be open to the things that are the future Kismet occurrences in our lives. When you say yes instead of hide away in your comfort zone, like how many of us, like sometimes, and I definitely am guilty of this, like I just want to hang out in my bed with my journal and write, and it just sounds like a big pain to go somewhere. But then I just get my butt out of bed and I go and do something new, and I go and experience something new, and then lo and behold, I've met something or seen something that completely changes my perspective. So that's one thing, like get out of your comfort zone. Go do something new. Be open to these new people and these new possibilities. Like purpose often comes from random occurrences that weren't so random at all. When you open your heart and listen to a stranger, just like I was saying, like sometimes I know for me, like even though I might seem super social, I'm also just as not social. I would sometimes just prefer to hide away in here and not talk to anybody. But then when I go out and I just talk and listen, like just listen, sometimes, actually most of the time when we just stop and listen, that's where all the magic happens. And oftentimes we get so busy that we are listening to talk. We're listening to see what we can say next. We're listening about how we can respond next. But what happens if we just listen with no expectation, but you fully 100% are listening to somebody? That's where the magic happens. Get out of your routine. Listen in on the quiet. Yeah, like listen in on nothing. Listen in, even if it's just to the birds chirping, and see what you experience. Gladly bump into a stranger. You know, like one thing that sometimes it kind of irritates me is like sometimes it feels like nobody wants to talk to anybody. You know, like like at the grocery store, I'm like, hello, good morning. And people are like, so what if your one good morning just changed someone's entire day? You know, what if actually last weekend was the opening of the Rockies game, and being downtown, I was like, I'm either gonna get super irritated or I can just dig my feet into it and enjoy it. So I put my safety vest on. We have a problem with scooters on the sidewalk, running us over, almost running my dad over. It really makes me mad. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just, instead of complaining about it, I'm gonna do something fun about it. And I put on a safety vest. I had a stop and slow sign, and I was on the sidewalk patrolling, like, scooter, slow down. But then I used it as an opportunity to flip the sign to stop. And I had people stop on the sidewalk, and I was like, when was the last time that you cried? And this guy, I like to go deep, and I like to go deep fast. Let's really get down to life. Let's, enough of this, hello, how are you, how's the weather? But let's get deep. So this guy stops, and he's like, wow. He's like, I was just on the golf course thinking about my brother who had passed away on the 9th hole. I was on the 9th hole, and I just started thinking about him, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And we talked about it, and he was like, thank you so much for that. So a conversation can actually open up someone's heart, and our brokenness, sharing our brokenness can help heal others, and that's such a beautiful thing. And it could come even in the form of stop, slow, stop, slow. So it just, I think for me it was one of those big opportunities where I could learn that I could either be annoyed or I could have some fun. And I like to have some fun, so instead of getting mad, just bring the joy, bring the love onto the street. Assignment. Think of events in your life that have occurred that you feel like are kismet. How did your life change because of one little occurrence? Just really, if you have a journal or whatever, just write it down, or just be thinking about that one little, that one time I was grabbing for a box of cereal and then it fell, and then I met this person, what are the tiny little things that might seem insignificant at the time really went on to change your entire life? I think that when we can see every little occurrence, like a little piece of magic is happening, you change your whole perspective. And life is too short to be an Eeyore, nobody likes me, nothing is good. So just like when you can turn your brain into a different way of thinking and just be like, you know what, something awesome is gonna happen at the store. And don't wait for the awesome to happen, be awesome. You know, just be that joy to someone else. Like, sure, maybe everyone in your workplace is a big old grumpy pants. Don't be a grumpy pants. Like, bring the joy, because when you can bring the joy, hearts are gonna soften. Let's see here. In conclusion, life is so freaking awesome. Life is so awesome. Amongst the pain, there's beauty and growth. Amongst the missing, there is found. Amongst unanswered questions are answers in ways that you never could have dreamed. Keep your heart open. Look around in the darkness for the sparks of light. Be a spark of light. Pretty soon you will be surrounded by the beauty of surprises. One more. I want to give a big shout out to my mom. This is the beautiful Brandi Shigley, who passed away in 2019. And her life just became so many people's legacy. And everything that I do it with her in my heart. So just want to give a big shout out to my mama. And that is Kismet.